This episode of the Creep Street Podcast is brought to you by Martini Coffee Roasters. You know, people always look at me weird when I say I start off every morning with a big old martini. But then I set them straight, and I tell them I'm talking about Martini Coffee Roasters coffee. A delicious coffee made by the Martini family. They roast their coffee using a traditional method of sight and sound to roast those little babies to perfection. And they also sell green coffee beans for those home roasters out there. And right now, fans of the Creep Street Podcast can get 20% off their entire order by using the code CREEPSTREET at martinicoffee.com. Once again, for 20% off your order, use the code CREEPSTREET at martinicoffee.com. Martini Coffee Roasters, the perfect coffee to keep you creeps caffeinated.
You've taken a wrong turn down Creep Street.
Citizens of the Milky Way, this is Dylan Hackworth.
This is Maureen Bogey.
And this is Creep Street. Ghouls and gals, we have made it.
We sure have. Welcome. We are here.
Good golly, Miss Molly, we have made it.
Yes.
All Hallows Eve is upon us.
Happy Halloween, happy holidays, salutations, and blessings to you all.
Amen. Good golly. And you know what? This is episode 98. Mm-hmm. We're only a couple weeks away from the big 100.
So another big spooky celebration that's going to just keep the Halloween vibes going into November, baby. So don't worry. This is just the beginning.
Yes. And I just want to say, I think we have a lot of new listeners probably this month, people who were just, because of the season, looking for something spooky. Mm-hmm. We just want you to know we stay spooky all year long.
That's right.
We are so happy to have you here.
Oh my God, so exciting.
So happy to welcome you all as members of the Creep Street Homeowners Association. Let me just start things off as we always do. Of course, follow us on Facebook and Instagram at Creep Street Podcast, Twitter at Creep Street Pod. On our Facebook, there is another forum within our Facebook called Citizens of the Milky Way. It's a little place where daily we like to interact with our listeners, post articles, funny stories, people share stuff. It's a lot of fun. Anyone can join that. You just go click Let Me In and one of us will let you in. And of course, if once a week is not enough, if once a week is not enough creep for your street, baby.
And it's not. It's just not, and we know that. We know that, and we accept it, and we're ready to live our lives suchly.
Halloween is the time for truth. The veil is thin.
That's right.
I think the veil you've had over your eyes that once a week was enough, well, maybe you can see through it now.
Oh,
and see that it's not. Please head to patreon.com/Creep Street Podcast to get all sorts of goodies. And also, of course, folks in the Chicago area, we have two events coming up. In November, the 19th through the 21st, we will be in Rosemont, Illinois at the Days of the Dead Horror Convention.
We are so excited for this. There's going to be so many amazing, cool people.
Oh my God.
Like A-list people coming to this con. And not just us. You know what I'm saying? Other A-listers.
I saw Billy Zane's going to be there. I want to shake hands with old Billy Zane.
This is a little known fact about Dylan James Hackworth is that he's a big Billy Zane fan.
Love Billy Zane. And then, of course, in December 10th through the 12th, we will be at C2E2, a Chicago Comics and Entertainment Expo. And on December 10th, that's a Friday at 7 p.m., we will be hosting our own live panel, Creep Street Live and Undead. Please join us, folks. We are so excited. John Cena's going to be there.
Is he going to be a part of our panel? I mean, we can't say no. We don't know that he's not.
I mean, a guy who looks like that, we're not going to say no if he wants to be. Good golly. You feel that cold wind? You feel that cold chill?
I do.
Maureen, I think we better just pull the Band-Aid off.
Okay, God.
What is today's episode?
Today's a big one. What we would consider to be a big daddy episode.
Oh, it's a big fat one.
Yeah.
It's throbbing, it's veiny, it's
thick, it's firm.
It's quivering.
We're not going to lie to you about that. It is firm and tough.
Oh yeah, it's a sturdy bastard.
This episode is all about the true story behind one of the scariest, most horrifying, and infamous movies of all time.
The English Patient.
Today we are talking about The English Patient. Of course, we are actually talking about The Exorcist.
Yes.
But not just The Exorcist. We're talking about the true story behind it, of course.
Yes.
And that is The Possession of Roland Doe.
Ooh, mama, board up your windows, lock the doors, put that crucifix around your neck, sprinkle the room, smudge some sage for Christ's sake.
You better believe that while I was researching this episode, I was on Etsy in the process of ordering some Palo Santo and some smudge, sage, anything, and I will be buying it post-recording this.
Oh, yeah.
And smudging this whole apartment of ours.
Absolutely. This is one freaky-ass tale. God, if this is what inspired The Exorcist.
Oh, my God. Dylan, have you seen The Exorcist?
Yes, I have.
What are your thoughts on The Exorcist?
It's one of those movies I saw it when I was younger, and of course it horrified me. I've only seen it maybe 2 times, 3 times. Obviously it's not one maybe for some people, it's not one you can just throw on for a casual viewing.
Exactly. It's you really gotta pull that trigger and say, we are watching this now. I'm not just tossing this on and gonna play Toon Blast on my phone.
Yeah. It's one of those, if you're going to watch it, you kind of plan to watch it.
Right.
It's so relentless in its terror, and it shocks me how much this did change culture. We think about Star Wars and stuff. I would argue that The Exorcist had a more profound effect on the culture than something even like Star Wars.
I agree. I totally agree. But many people don't know, or maybe don't want to know, that The Exorcist was based on a true story.
Good golly.
In this story, the afflicted is a young boy of the age of 13 rather than a girl named Reagan, like in the movie.
Right.
This actually happened to a boy whose identity has been protected all these years and is most commonly known as Roland Doe. Now, before we get cooking, let's list off our sources for this week.
Please, Maureen, please.
One was a fantastic documentary from Shock Docs. This episode was called The Exorcism of Roland Doe, and you can find that on Discovery Plus. Once again, one of our plugs for Discovery Plus. Next, we have an article from fandom.com called How The Exorcist Redefined the Horror Genre by Arnold T. Blumberg.
Mr. Arnold T. Blumberg.
And finally, we have the book Confrontation with Evil, the 1949 St. Louis Exorcism by Steve Allen LaChance.
Whew, so we got our bases covered on this bastard.
We sure do. We decided to go all in for this Halloween episode. So Roland Doe was an only child living in a suburb of D.C. called Cottage City, Maryland. He was a little bit hyper and had a little bit trouble focusing, but other than that, he was a pretty normal kid. And this was in 1949, and people are saying that he was a little hyper and stuff like that. So by today's standards, I think he would pretty much just be your run-of-the-mill normal kid.
Yeah, hyper for 49 means he got his driver's license a little early.
He sneezed. He's a loud sneezer, and therefore he gets some marks down in class. Actually, we don't know.
We don't know. The science is not settled.
Yeah, it's just we don't have it. Now, Roland had an aunt named Aunt Tilly who lived in St. Louis, who he was very close with. And this Aunt Tilly was interested in the occult and spiritualism. The legend goes that Roland used a Ouija board with his Aunt Tilly, and that may have been what opened the door.
Oh boy.
To the other side.
Oh, refer back to our Ouija episode, episode 94.
That's right. If you are interested in using a Ouija board, please listen to our episode number 94, the Ouija episode. Now, here's the thing though. Roland's mom was also interested in spiritualism and also was into practicing communicating with the other side. So it's possible that maybe that had something to do with this and the Ouija board was unrelated. Also, maybe none of this is what brought on the possession. We don't really know.
Right.
Now, on January 15th, 1949, Roland's mom starts to hear scratching noises inside of the walls. And it's not just Roland's mom, it's the whole family, which is Roland's mom, Roland's dad, and Roland. He was an only child.
Wow.
But all three of them were hearing these scratching noises inside of the walls, especially this one part of the wall where there was a crucifix. The scratching was so bad that it made the crucifix fall off of the wall.
Yikes.
They believed that they maybe had a rodent problem or something like that, so they called in an exterminator, but the exterminator saw nothing. And it was at this time that Roland's mom started to think that maybe the house was haunted.
Okay.
On January 26th, 1949, Roland's beloved Aunt Tilly passed away. Not long after that, the family started to hear weird noises in Roland's room, like bangs, knocks, and also hearing like the sound of troops walking towards the bed, like lots and lots of foot traffic.
Like legions of
Yes.
people.
As we said before, Roland's mom was kind of interested in the occult. And she thought that maybe these banging noises and the sounds of troops walking forward and the mattress was shaking and all sorts of this weird stuff was maybe Aunt Tilly trying to communicate. So she said, "Tilly, if that's you, knock 3 times." And they heard 3 knocks. Then they asked Tilly, "If it's really you, knock 4 times." And then they heard 4 knocks. So they started to believe that this activity was Aunt Tilly trying to communicate in a weird way.
And rule number 1 in our Ouija episode was, even if whoever it is says they are this person, don't necessarily believe them.
Yes, exactly. Because these entities or whatever are known to be liars.
Yeah.
And anyone that had the ability to knock 3 times or to knock 4 times could have done that. There's no way to really know that that was actually Aunt Tilly.
Right. It's not that you can never get in touch. It's not like they couldn't get in touch with Aunt Tilly. You can, but at the same time, you could just as easily be talking to something pretending to be your loved one.
Exactly. As time goes on, the family started to see dishes move, chairs spin. Roland's bed would shake so much that the mattress would be bouncing up and down in a dangerous way, honestly.
Wow.
Roland was also heard speaking in a low, guttural voice at night that was not his own.
All right, now there we're getting to scary town already.
That's right. And the thing is, it wasn't just at home. Roland's classmates started to see some weird things too. His desk would move and shake. His books and papers would fly across the room. Now, since Roland was, a little bit hyper, his teachers thought that this was just Roland acting up and thinking that Roland was tossing his own books and things like that, whereas Roland was adamant that he was innocent and that he wasn't doing any of this.
Ruh-roh.
Yikes. In February of 1949, Roland starts having these recurring nightmares of evil spirits, and he's waking up screaming and in these contorting fits. Almost like having a seizure where all of his muscles are contracting in a very intense manner. It's at this point that he even stops going to school. His situation is so intense. His parents start to think that maybe this is epilepsy.
Okay.
So they take him to the doctor, but the doctor couldn't find anything wrong. Then they went to a psychiatrist and they found nothing wrong. Then they went to a psychologist and the psychologist found nothing wrong, said normal but high strung. Now, this is 1949, so the mental health field was not nearly as developed as it is today. So it's entirely possible that there was maybe something that they missed, that they weren't able to diagnose at the time, or was not as well known or well studied.
Right.
But it is interesting that there was nothing found, quote unquote, wrong with him at the time.
That is interesting.
So at this point, they decide they need to talk to their minister at St. Peter Evangelical Lutheran Church, Reverend Luther Miles Scholes. Reverend Scholes was very into parapsychology, which many people think is what can maybe be like inner turmoil expressed externally.
Like a poltergeist.
Like
in
a poltergeist,
is an
exactly.
example of it.
And that's exactly what the Reverend thought maybe was going on. He thought maybe this was a poltergeist. So the Reverend thought that poltergeists could not leave the house. So on February 17th, 1949, Roland actually stays at the Reverend's house overnight. His wife stayed in the guest room, and Roland slept in the same room with Reverend Scholes.
Okay.
This sounds very weird, but I think everything was fine.
Yeah.
They slept in separate beds. They had like 2 twin beds in the room because this was the 40s.
Right.
So they didn't have one bed in the master bedroom anyway. So they were sleeping in 2 twin beds in the same room. Once again, this is weird, but I think it was kosher. Now, not long after they try to go to sleep, Roland's bed starts shaking. The Reverend sees this and is like, okay, this is very strange. I don't really know how to explain this. How about you go sleep in the armchair across the room? But not long after that, the armchair starts shaking, and it's shaking so much that it bounces and it knocks Roland out of the chair. Then Roland lays on a mattress on the ground next to the Reverend's bed, but the mattress starts bouncing and sliding all across the room, even so much so that he was under the bed.
Jesus, okay.
Then 3 scratches appear on Roland, and this would happen 4 nights in a row. Scholes says that this is not a poltergeist and is beyond what he can deal with, so he tells Roland's parents to go take him to a Catholic priest.
Okay.
So here we have again the 3 scratches on the arm, kind of like we've seen this before in the Sally house.
Yep.
And other things. 3 is like this is a symbol for the Trinity, the Holy Christian Trinity.
Right.
And the 3 scratches is like a mockery of the Trinity. So at the recommendation of the Lutheran Reverend Scholes, they reached out to the Jesuit Father Albert Hughes at St. James Catholic Church. When Roland and his parents went to go meet with Father Hughes said that the temperature suddenly dropped and became very, very cold. And watched his telephone slide across the desk. Roland said,
"Why bother me, you priest of hell?"
and yelled obscenities at the priest. Father Hughes thought that the devil was possessing this boy. So Father Hughes contacts the Archbishop Patrick O'Doyle and says that Roland needs an exorcism. The Archbishop O'Doyle, he was reluctant, but eventually says okay, which is a big deal. There weren't at the time and aren't now a lot of exorcisms that are allowed by the Catholic Church.
Yeah.
In late February or early March of 1949, Father Hughes admits Roland to the Georgetown Hospital and goes forward with the exorcism. Now, the exorcism rite, I'm sure a lot of people have seen it in movies and stuff like that, but in movies it's often appeared or shown to be this thing that happens in a matter of minutes or hours or something like that, where usually an exorcism takes much longer than that, months, or it's even has been known to last years, where it's like separate sessions of exorcisms. So this was just the first session. They were pretty sure that this wouldn't take just in the first time, especially because Roland's symptoms were so intense. But in the rite of exorcism, it's essentially the priest is just praying over the person that is possessed. There's a lot of other specificities to it. There's essentially the ancient book from, I believe it's the 7th century, the booklet that tells you the actual rite of exorcism and the prayers to say. There's also a stole that you wear, which is like a scarf, and it's purple. And there's also holy water and a crucifix.
Right, okay.
So all of this is happening at the Georgetown Hospital. And Roland he's so strong and going through, like unnaturally strong, you know.
And how old is he at this point?
He's 13.
Okay, so he's
like a boy. He's still a boy. So has this like unnatural strength for anyone, especially for his age. So he's tied down to the bed, and in a humane way, but he is strapped down to the bed. Thankfully, this was being done at a hospital, which is a good place.
It wasn't just the priest in his own room tying him down.
Right. So as the exorcism is going forward, Roland somehow breaks free from the strap that is holding him down, grabs a mattress spring from the bed, and uses the metal spring to slice Father Hughes' arm from shoulder to wrist, which would eventually require 100 stitches.
That's like John Wick shit.
That is John Wick shit.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, this is wild. How could a 13-year-old boy just be able to do that on his own? I mean, that sounds crazy. To be able to like pull out one of those mattress springs would be that's a lot of strength to be able to do that.
Yeah.
Now, it is said that Father Hughes was really never the same after that incident. It left him with permanent injuries in his arm, and also just emotionally and mentally was just really never the same.
He lost that spring in his step.
Oh, that was good. Days later, after being sent back home, Roland in the evening starts to get these bloody scratches that would appear on his chest. Now, this would happen when his arms were completely at his side. There was no way that he could have done this himself. And at one point, the scratches on his chest, which by the way were extremely painful. It's not like just these marks would appear. It was searing pain as the scratches would appear. But the scratches came together to spell the word Louis. Now, Roland's parents and Roland took this to mean St. Louis, which is where they had family. Not just their Aunt Tilly that lived there, but other family lived in St. Louis as well. They thought that maybe this was a time for them to go to St. Louis so that they could try to find some help there, since they've kind of exhausted all of their options in the D.C. area.
I don't know if my brain would immediately go to St. Louis.
Right.
Because Louis is a fairly common name.
Right.
I would think, okay, is this about someone named Louis? Like, I wouldn't go immediately. Now,
yeah,
if they carved the word Detroit,
right,
I wouldn't go, maybe this is a French person named Detroit. No,
right.
I would think the city. Louis is different because Louis is a common name.
I mean, maybe that's just the only thing they could think of, that they didn't know a Louis or something like that. So maybe that's why they just thought, oh, St. Louis. But at the same time, if like the entity is saying Louis, and if I thought St. Louis, I wonder if I would be like, should we go to St. Louis or should we avoid St. Louis?
Yeah, that's the other thing.
I don't really. I mean, they took it to mean let's go to St. Louis, but I don't know. That sounds kind of scary to me.
Yeah.
That's something that the author of the book, Steve Allen LeChance, the book that I read for this episode.
That's right. And he appears in that shock doc.
He does. He also appears in the documentary. And he said that he believes that maybe Roland's mother was really more so, maybe not more so, that's not the right word, but like was very interested in being to communicate with this entity, was very interested in this opportunity to talk with the other side, and was very interested in that more so compared to interest in actually protecting her son.
Yeah.
Like she was very interested in this situation and would kind of ask questions to get answers through these scratches when she knew that it was causing her son pain. Like she did still want her son to be healed, but she was still very, very interested in being able to communicate with the other side.
Exactly. Okay.
Kind of was taking advantage of the situation. Like, I guess even asking the entity about like a lost fortune that Aunt Tilly had, or, you know, things like that, where it's like, this is probably not the time to be like asking these questions.
Yeah.
Really, maybe let's focus on just getting your son healed. And that's just the author of the book I read. That's just his opinion, you know, I don't know.
Right.
Believe it or not, the family got on a train and they decided to go to St. Louis. They really didn't have much of a plan. They just knew they were kind of out of options in Maryland. They had family in St. Louis that they could lean on and that could support them and that they could stay with. So they went to St. Louis really without a plan. But on March 8th, 1949, they're in St. Louis and they are staying with relatives that are devout Catholics in the suburb of Belle Knoll. While they're there, Roland seems very different. And then, of course, the same things start happening at night. Screaming, things flying around the room, and the whole family is terrified. Now, one of Roland's cousins went to St. Louis University, which is a Catholic school, and went to one of her professors, Father Raymond Bishop, and told him about the situation with her cousin Roland, and asks if there's anything that Father Bishop can do. So on March 11th, 1949, Father Bishop arrives at where Roland is staying and brings along Father William Bowden, another Jesuit priest from St. Francis Xavier College Church. They begin to pray over Roland and wait a while, but strangely enough, nothing really happens. So after a little bit, they leave the room, and of course, once they leave the room, that's when stuff starts to pop off. There are loud noises, a bottle of holy water flies across the room, and a bookcase moves and covers the bedroom door. And it's at this point that the priests really think that this is demonic.
Wow.
So what is an exorcism, or what is a possession, I should say. There's a 7th century manual on how to conduct the ritual of exorcism. Like I said before, it's mainly praying, and there are about 125 Catholic exorcists in America today. And the Pope is an exorcist.
Can you imagine that? If you were to get an exorcism from the Pope, that'd be like going to Bill Gates to get your computer fixed.
I know, for real. It would be kind of sick.
The first stage of demonic possession is obsession, according to the Encyclopedia of Demons and Demonology. The word obsession comes from the Latin word obsidiare, which means to a state of siege or at an attack of a person or personality from within by demons. The next stage is infestation, which is the presence of demons in a place, object, or animal. Infestation occurs when demons are able to take up residence and create disturbances. It is a precursor to more serious demonic problems, such as oppression and possession. Infestation can be the result of people's curses, magic spells, rituals, or even actions. The Catholic Church teaches that using Ouija boards, making a pact with the devil, or leading a sinful life can cause an infestation. Infesting demons create chaos and fear through poltergeist-like activity, the manifestation of shadowy figures and other paranormal phenomena. Victims may hear knocks on the door when no one is present. The next stage is oppression, which is the demonic influence that takes control of a victim's will. This type of torment can lead to an internal or psychological breakdown. Oppressed victims are terrorized by demonic screams, heavy breathing, footsteps, knocking, hellish moans, inhuman voices, nightmares and disturbed sleep, and disgusting smells such as sulfur or rotting flesh. Levitation of people or large objects and furniture, and finally, materializations of a black form that personifies evil are the culmination of this oppression caused by the demon. Because of the demon, the victims believe they are insane. Dramatic personality changes are accompanied by mood swings and depression. The victim will make heavy use of foul or obscene language. Friends and family feel the victim have undergone marked personality change. This stage can be relieved by the rite of exorcism, accompanied by a spiritual reform of the victim. Demonic possession is the final stage. Demonic possession is complete when a demon inhabits a person's body and controls their thoughts, words, and actions. A possessed person can seem normal for periods of time, and then exhibit bizarre, uncontrolled behavior attributed to the demon. During the demonic episodes, the victim is entranced, and when they end, there is no transition period of a return to normalcy. Victims that are possessed are usually possessed by more than one demon, and unless they are exorcised, the demons can lead to the deterioration of health, death, or suicide.
So it's kind of 4 steps. So it's obsession, infestation, oppression, possession.
So it's obsession, infestation, oppression, and possession.
Right. So, and by obsession, I'm assuming they mean the person's obsession with something, like with the occult or something, or does it mean like the entity is obsessed with the person?
Basically, all it means is that it's the beginning attack on the person.
Right.
So
okay.
it's not obsession like being obsessed with something. It's more so, a state of siege or an attack on a person or personality from within.
Okay, very
So it's like the very beginning.
Right. And then the infestation is almost where it seems like a haunting.
Exactly.
Like nothing's directly hitting you. It's more like your house is haunted.
Yes.
And then it turns on you. That's the oppression until it wears you down enough to possess
Possession.
you. Okay.
Exactly.
Interesting.
So, because of this first session of praying over Roland, like I said before, Father Bowdern really believed that this was a demonic possession. So the priests contact the Archbishop Joseph Ritter about an exorcism. Father Bowdern says that it really should happen, but he wants another priest to do the exorcism. He doesn't think he's in the right place spiritually, mentally, physically, anything. He just doesn't think he is the right person to do this. You need to be a person of very strong faith, and not that he wasn't a person of strong faith, of course, but just you need someone that really is ready for it. However, the Archbishop Joseph Ritter says, yeah, he can have an exorcism, but you have to do it. And I don't really know why, but that's what happened. And Father Bowdern was just like, well, fuck.
Right.
I'm sure he didn't say that, but I think that's the subtext of what he was thinking. He was like, I guess I just have to do this. I don't really have a choice. So on March 16th is the first day of Father Bowdern doing an exorcism. Father Bowdern arrives, and along with him he has Father Bishop, and then a seminary student named William Halloran. So sometimes I'll just call him Mr. Halloran, or sometimes I'll call him Father Halloran, because he did become a priest, but at the time he technically wasn't, one of those things. So the Archbishop Ritter is like, you can do this, but we really need you to be secretive about this exorcism, because these are kind of a big deal. It can cause a lot of scrutiny and a lot of scandal. So let's try to keep this a secret. But Father Bishop is like, we are keeping a diary though. We must keep a diary about this, because this is we want this to maybe be like a manual for what people can do in the future, because this is such an intense case.
Right.
And that's exactly what he did. And that's how we have a lot of our information today. So they arrive with their holy water, crucifix, purple stole, and exorcism manual, and they begin to pray. Not long after that, bloody scratches appear on Roland's body. In the diary, it says,
Roland recoiled under the evident pain as each mark was made. Apparently the demon would not relinquish his identity, but the priests worked hard to force it out. Then the word hell appeared on Roland's chest, as if it was burned or branded on, and it was red and rash-like.
There was no way he possibly could have done this himself. The priests believed that this was meant to instill fear in them, and after 9 hours of this, Roland finally falls asleep. At the end of this exorcism, they can tell this is going to take even longer than they initially thought.
Right.
On March 18th, 1949, this is day 3. During the day, Roland was acting normal, and they start to think that maybe these exorcisms are working. But at night, he's worse than ever.
Oh boy.
He's snarling, biting, and at one point, Roland starts to nearly vomit, and it begs them to open up the window so he could purge this thing that was within him. And then he really does vomit. And this is a common thing that happens in possessions or in exorcisms. And this is kind of a physical representation of the demon really leaving the body.
Right.
So they think this maybe was the demon leaving, but unfortunately that did not happen. In the diary, it reads,
About 2 a.m., Roland felt strange sensations in his stomach, and in a few moments he began to call out fearfully, He's coming back! He's coming back! Father Bowdern was called at 3:15 a.m.
Now, this is something that apparently demons do often, which is make someone think that they have been exorcised from the body just to slowly and painfully tear them down more and more. Now, on March 20th, Day 5, Father Walter Halloran said he watched the bed levitate 8 inches off the floor and then slam back down again. A scientist named Frank Bubb, who was a legit scientist, he was a part of the Manhattan Project apparently, he said that he saw a nightstand levitate.
Wow.
And apparently Roland was just becoming more and more volatile. On March 23rd, Day 8, Father Bowdern sends Roland to St. Francis Xavier College Rectory at St. Louis University to spend the night there, thinking that maybe being near a church and in a rectory could help the situation. But Roland's outbursts end up being heard by people just walking around the campus. He was being so loud.
Wow.
He was exhibiting unnatural human strength. 3 men could barely restrain him, and he punched Father O'Halloran in the face and broke his nose.
Dear God.
This is a 13-year-old boy.
13-year-old boy, right. And even if he was big for his age, like 3 grown-ass men.
Right.
You know
and he was
what I
still
mean?
able to get enough force to break a grown man's nose.
Right.
On March 26th, Day 11, Roland returns to his relative's house, and for the next 5 days, nothing happens.
Wow.
Then, all of the sudden, everything popped off and went wild. He said he wanted to write things down, so they brought down this huge architecture paper that apparently his uncle was an architect, so they had this, and he wrote down all of these different messages that were coming from the demon within him. And one thing that he wrote down was,
I will stay 10 days, but will return after the 4 days are up. I am the devil himself.
Oh boy.
Then on April 1st, this is day 17, Father Bowdern says, let's baptize him as a Catholic. In the Catholic rite or ritual of baptism, it is the whole point basically is rejecting Satan. So they think this is a good way to do this. Even though he is a Lutheran, they just think let's baptize him as a Catholic. Let's literally double dip.
Let's double dip.
But on the drive to the church, Roland gets in a fit of rage and tries to grab the wheel and says,
This isn't going to work.
and he tries to crash the car. They couldn't even get him into the church at first, but finally they drag him in, literally kicking and screaming and spitting. And apparently he is absolutely repulsed by the holy water. Once again, it takes 3 men to really be able to contain him, and they have to do a shortened version of the baptism ritual just to get it done. Now, at this point, Father Bowdern is like, you guys should really go back to Maryland. This is just too much. You need to be at your own house. I'll go with you, and I'll help you find someone that he can be treated and have an exorcism with under medical conditions. So they go out back east, but they literally can't find anyone that wants to touch this case because it was so weird.
Oh my God.
And this is a big problem in the medical community in general, is that if a case is hard, they don't want it. Messes up numbers.
Right.
When really, when the case is hard, that's when they need you the most. So then Bowdern and Roland return back to the Midwest, and they're like, all right, fine, we got to do it here. On April 10th, this is day 26, Father Bowdern admits Roland into Alexian Brothers Hospital, into the psych ward there, to be able to have his exorcisms done at this hospital. Now, the Alexian Brothers are a very old brotherhood, a part of Catholicism, and they are known for their secrecy, so they thought this would be the perfect place to be dealing with this exorcism. Roland was also admitted into the hospital at the beginning of Holy Week, so they thought that that would really help the situation.
Right.
Holy Week is the week leading up to Easter, which is, the most important holiday in Catholicism or Christianity. Now, there was an Alexian brother named Greg Halowinski, who didn't say this at the time, but many years later, when he was a grown old man, he said that he not only saw Roland grab one of the purple stoles, like those purple sashes, and rip it. It's a very high quality silk piece of material, and he rips it into 1,000 threads.
Oh my God.
But not only that, they also saw him levitate. And there was really no reason for this man, this retired priest, Greg Halowinski, to lie about this.
Right, exactly.
So it's very interesting that he says this. Now, it's also around here that Roland starts doing this weird kind of like sexual suggestive shit.
Okay.
While he's in these spells. Like, it's clearly a demon that's doing this, but it makes them wonder, maybe was Roland sexually abused earlier in his life?
Right.
Maybe the demon is sexually abusing him? Oh, they don't really know.
Right.
Also, at one point, 4 X's start showing up on Roland's body in these horrible scratches. And they think that maybe that stands for 40, which maybe means that there are 40 demons inside of Roland. 40 is mentioned 146 times in the Bible, and it is an important number.
Yeah.
It refers to trials and tribulations and testing and things like that. And so they're thinking that maybe this is also used as a mockery of God. The same thing as kind of doing 3, like the Trinity.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
However, like Dylan said before, these guys are liars. So it's hard to know, does that really mean that there are 40 demons inside of Roland Doe, or 40 having to do with anything, or is it just a wild goose chase?
Right.
Now, on April 11th, the 27th day, was pretty intense. This is an excerpt from our book this week.
At 9 p.m., Roland went to bed, and the exorcism was completed. Father Bishop wrote, "The evening gave every reason for expecting quiet. However, when the fathers were praying the rosary, Roland felt a sting upon his chest. Only a blotch of red was noticeable at this time. The rosary was continued, and Roland felt a more severe branding upon his chest. Father Bishop explains, the letters were in all caps and read in the direction of Roland's crotch. Exit seemed quite clear. On another branding, a large arrow followed up the word exit and pointed to Roland's penis. The word exit appeared at different times in 3 different parts of Roland's body. He felt horrible pain in his kidneys and in his penis, and would cry from the burning sensations. He complained of even more severe pain every time he urinated." Father Bishop continues in the diary, "At midnight, the fathers planned to give Roland Holy Communion, but Satan would have no part of it. Roland's body became severely scratched and branded as the fathers were explaining to Roland the institution of the Blessed Sacrament. The word hell was printed on his chest and thigh. As the attempt at Holy Communion continued, long, heavy scratches appeared on Roland's hips, to his ankles in clear protest. When Father Bowdern tried to give Roland a small particle of the sacred bread, He went into a seizure, and the devil proclaimed he would not allow the boy to, quote, receive. It was thought at this point that the spiritual communion would have been administered, but the words, "I want to receive you in Holy Communion," were cut off at the word communion with a seizure. It seemed that administering the Eucharist would stir the devil up even more than it ordinarily did that evening. The usual routine of barking, spitting, cursing, and fighting continued longer than it usually did. There was no quiet sleep on this night, even when the devoted fathers continued to pray.
Poor kid. Awful.
I know, he's just in so much physical pain.
That's just awful.
Oh, it's so sad. It's so terrible. On April 13th, day 29th of the exorcism, the priests think that it may be a good idea to bring Roland to the White House Retreat Center, which is an outdoor retreat center in the Catholic Church, and they thought that this might be a good idea, that maybe some fresh air would do him some good.
Seems like we're a bit beyond fresh air with this.
Yeah.
Seems like what's happening to this child, we're a bit beyond the fresh fucking air.
Yeah.
Let's try and think of something better than getting some fresh fucking air.
Yeah, I couldn't agree.
He could take some vitamin D. He doesn't, I think we're beyond just getting a bit of sunlight.
You're right. But they did take him. Okay?
Good.
And there were these statues there that they were depicting the Stations of the Cross. Now, the Stations of the Cross, for anyone who may not know, is essentially just the steps that Jesus took from right before walking up to be crucified until right after he was crucified. And it's usually along the walls of a Catholic church.
Okay.
So here, it's outside, and there's like statues depicting up Jesus carrying the cross, Jesus falls for the first time,
right.
You know, all these different steps.
Right.
And Roland seemed to be very, very interested in the stories of these different stations. And at the station of Jesus entering the tomb, Roland went in a huge fit of rage and starts running. He's just blindly running, and he almost runs over the edge of a cliff. Father Halloran has to chase him and literally tackle him down to stop him. In an interview, Father O'Halloran even said it was the only tackle he ever made. Football. But once Roland kind of gets out of this trance he was in, he doesn't have any memory of any of that happening. And at the same time, oozing boils start to cover the priest's body. Father Bowdern has lost about 40 pounds and feels incredibly weak.
Oh my God.
Because to do the rite of exorcism, there's lots of prep work you have to do, like you have to fast and all these different things, so he really was going through it.
Wow.
And also just the physical attacks that not Roland, but whatever was within Roland
Right, exactly.
was doing against them physically as well. Now, some other things that he did that were very bizarre was that Roland was able to speak, or he was able to say words, at least, in Aramaic, which is an ancient Hebrew.
Mm-hmm.
He used his own nails to scratch hell in Christ into his chest. He would sometimes stagger around like a drunk man. He chanted,
"You will die tonight. You will die tonight."
Oh boy.
to one of his little cousins. And he said some crazy things. In the diary, it says,
"The vile and filthy talk which followed makes anyone shudder."
So there you go.
Well,
I think a lot
goodness.
of like bend you over and fuck you type,
Right, and probably
type
like-
language. Just regular stuff we say on Creep Street.
Yeah.
Now, I wanted to talk a little bit about the first time that Roland took Holy Communion. I think this is a very interesting story. So now we will hear an account of that.
Oh boy.
After taking the Holy Communion, Roland dressed to go home. It was about 11:45 a.m. when they left for the uncle's house. Father O'Flaherty was driving with Father Bowdern and Roland's father, with Roland sitting in the back seat. After being on the road only a few minutes, Roland jumped and grabbed Father O'Flaherty, and he had to be pulled off of him by force. Roland showed signs of normalcy only a few times during the whole trip. Once back at the house, Roland was able to eat a good-sized breakfast. However, he was only conscious for brief moments during the rest of the day. Father Bishop states, "The sacraments had stirred up Satan more than any other priestly administration. Not only was the family nervous for the long day of fighting, but they were also completely worn out. Fathers Bowdern, Bishop, and O'Flaherty, along with Michael, returned to the house at 7:40 p.m., and Roland's tantrums continued. During the Presepio, there was no response before 8:40 p.m. There was one short spell that lasted less than a minute between 8:40 p.m. and 1:40 p.m. During this period, ate a dish of ice cream, Father Bishop writes in the diary. Roland ran downstairs at 11:15 p.m. and sat on the arm of a parlor chair. He could no longer stay in the confines of the bedroom because he was becoming so nervous. Father Bowdern, who was afraid Roland would get violent, asked him to return to the bedroom. Roland boyishly trotted up the stairs and went into the bedroom and ran straight to the reliquary of the Holy Cross. Father O'Flaherty caught Roland's hand in time, but Roland reached for the open ritual and tore 4 pages out of the exorcism formula. He grasped with lightning speed, Bishop wrote. Roland then went into one of his spells, during which Father Bowdern asked the boy to respond in Latin to the Presepio. Roland's only responses were to repeat the Latin words and to respond with a remark of no or a laugh of ridicule. The same type of responses to the Presepio were continued at 12:15 a.m. The diary goes on to explain, there was a jumbled mockery of the Latin questions. At this time, writing appeared on the boy's body. The letters go were printed in red, as they were on the first night of exorcism. As the command dicas mihi tiem, 3 parallel scratches appeared on Roland's thigh. At horem, an X was branded. 3 were branded on different parts of Roland's body, according to the diary. At 1:15 a.m., Roland became so nervous that he wanted to sit in a chair beside the bed. His hands nervously trembled. Then he began begging his father to take him back to Washington because he feared he might be going crazy. Natural sleep finally came to Roland at 1:40 a.m. The Blessed Sacraments were causing an escalation in the boy. It seems as if an internal spiritual war was going on inside him. The constant nervousness is also an indication of the internal battle. Everyone must have felt like they were failing the boy because of the baptism and the Holy Communion seemed to have made things worse. It is also very sad that the boy stated he was afraid he might be going crazy. One of the major things a demon will try to do is make you second guess your sanity.
Goodness gracious.
Now, on April 16th, this is day 32. It was Holy Saturday. A monk placed a statue of Saint Michael in Roland's room. Now, Saint Michael is an important saint in Catholicism, especially for possessions, exorcisms, things like that.
Right.
According to the Catholic Encyclopedia, quote,
Saint Michael is one of the principal angels. His name was the war cry of the good angels of the battle fought in heaven against the enemy and his followers.
So Saint Michael is often prayed to in these kinds of situations, and it seems like maybe this statue of Saint Michael might even be helping the situation a little bit.
Okay.
Now, there is a prayer to Saint Michael, and I think that the prayer is very interesting and applies very much to this situation with Roland Doe. I'll now read a couple excerpts from this prayer.
It is thou whom the Holy Church venerates as her guardian and protector. Thou whom the Lord has charged to conduct redeemed souls into heaven. Pray, therefore, the God of peace to subdue Satan beneath our feet. Seize the dragon, the old serpent, which is the devil and Satan. Bind him and cast him into the bottomless pit, that he may no more seduce the nations.
So he's really known for casting out demons, casting out Satan.
Right.
And it's at this point that Roland says that he can see a light at the end of a tunnel when he is going through these exorcisms, and the light is getting brighter.
Okay.
So hopefully this is a good thing that
Right.
he's seeing this, and not a bad thing like a light at the end of the tunnel like you're dying.
Right, absolutely.
Now, on April 18th, the 34th day of exorcism. It's been more than 1 month since the first exorcism, and at this point, Roland is saying that the religious necklaces burn his skin. The priests put a crucifix in his hand, and it makes Roland go into convulsions. The demon speaks through Roland and says,
He has to say one more word. One little word. I mean, one big word. He'll never say it. I am always in him. I may not have much power always, but I am in him. He will never say that word.
So even though Roland was having these issues still with the pain, going into these kind of convulsions still, he seemed to be doing better tonight. And at 10:45, something miraculous happened.
At 10:45 p.m., the most striking event of the evening happened while Roland lay calmly during one of his seizures. A clear, commanding, and dignified voice broke into the prayer. Satan, Satan, I am Saint Michael, and I command you, Satan, and the other evil spirits to leave the body in the name of Dominus, immediately. Now, now, now. Then came the most violent contortions of the entire exorcism. Perhaps this was the fight of the finish, Bishop wrote. Father O'Flaherty and the other brothers were physically sore and exhausted from the fight. Roland fought for 7 or 8 minutes, and then, in a tone of complete relief, he said, "He's gone." Roland went back to normal and told everyone present that he felt fine. Roland described what he saw. I am going to give the complete quote from Father Bishop's diary for this description. He said there was a brilliant white light, and in that light stood a very beautiful man, with flowing, wavy hair that blew in the breeze. He wore a white robe that fitted close to his body. The material gave the impression of scales. Only the upper half of the body of this man was visible to Roland. In his right hand he held up a wavy and fiery sword in front of him, and his left hand he pointed down to a pit or cave. Roland said he saw the devil standing in the cave. Roland felt the heat from the cave and saw the flames. First, the devil fought, resisting the angel and laughing diabolically. Then the angel smiled at Roland and spoke, but Roland heard only the one word, Dominus. As the angel spoke, the devil and about 10 of his helpers ran back into the fire of the cave or pit. After the devil disappeared, the letters spite appeared on the bars of the cave. As the devils disappeared into the pit, Roland felt a pulling or a tugging in the region of his stomach. As the devils disappeared, he felt a snapping and then felt relaxed completely. He said that this was the most relaxed feeling he had had since the whole experience began in January. Roland related his visual experience at 11 p.m.
But Father Bowdern was a little unsure because he knew that this was the kind of thing that demons do. Like we said before, they try to make it seem like everything's good to go when really they're not. So Father Bowdern prayed for a sign to know that this was actually over this time and not just a trick. And then suddenly there was a massive boom that shook the whole building. It was so big that many people thought the furnace exploded. And some say that the image of St. Michael appeared at St. Francis Xavier College Church.
Wow.
Now, there's not a lot of information after this until August of 1949, so a few months later, but it seems like Roland was doing absolutely great. He was about to go back to school, he had a new dog, he was happy, he was doing really well, and he was just a normal kid. Now, the Catholic Church will neither confirm nor deny that Roland Doe was truly possessed, but many church figures have written their name down to say that they really did think that this really did happen and that Roland really was possessed.
Wow.
And since the exorcism, Roland actually did really well. He went to a high school called Gonzaga Prep. He got married. He named his first child Michael, apparently. And he became a literal rocket scientist and worked with NASA.
Wow.
And he died in his 80s in 2020.
Goodness. Wow. So he went on to live a full, happy life, a very successful life.
Yes.
Good for him.
Now, some people think that the demon just left, or the demons that were within Roland just left. Some people think that they attached themselves to one of the priests that were a part of this exorcism, and that this priest lived out the rest of his days in a mental hospital.
Wow.
Because of this, and died in the hospital. Some even say that the hospital room where this exorcism took place is still haunted to this day, that it's a locked room, in a blocked off room that you can actually hear objects being thrown around and furniture moving in there. And what I think is so interesting about this story is that I believe, at least, something was real and something happened.
Wow, incredible.
You know, it did every single thing that we talked about in today's episode happen.
Right.
We'll leave that up to you. But I think that at least something here was real.
Wow.
And it's so interesting that this boy went through literal hell and then was able to really, on the other side, get through it. He remained a Catholic for the rest of his life.
Oh, wow.
I mean, you know, he was into it. And of course, this story is so fascinating that it only makes sense that The Exorcist has made such a huge impact on society. And our book this week really puts it into words really well. One of the reasons why The Exorcist really has affected people throughout the years so much.
The evil is doubly disturbing for erupting in so familiar a setting. The poster of the film traded on this. A man with a suitcase stands on a street, silhouetted in the light from a bedroom window over the caption, Something almost beyond comprehension is happening to a girl on this street, in this house, and a man has been sent for a last resort. This man is the Exorcist. The sacred sphere of the home is at risk.
Like, this is supposed to be where you feel the most safe, is at your home. And that the fact that this can happen to anyone and can be happening in any house.
Exactly.
Is part of the reason why it can be so scary.
Exactly.
And it really created, or at least greatly influenced and moved forward, the whole subgenre of the spiritual or possession-related horror movies.
Right, exactly.
I mean, it had a huge effect on pop culture too, and just culture in general. I mean, there's so many references to The Exorcist in movies and TV shows, both indirectly and directly. And it's just one of those movies that everyone knows about. Even if they haven't seen it, they know what it is, they know what it's about. It really gave a ton of people to think about and worry about demons and things like that, when really that wasn't so much an issue before, and it's affected just like the group mind psyche. Like, the amount of people claiming that they're possessed went up by a huge fraction when The Exorcist came out. It just really, really affected people to their core.
And like, I want to say I heard like church attendance skyrocket.
Yes, it did.
People went back to church.
Yes.
It was probably like inadvertently one of the best things to happen
to the Catholic Church. Absolutely. And just to be clear, I don't necessarily think that using a Ouija board will make this happen to you. That's just what this story is saying.
Exactly.
There's a lot of things in this story that maybe we don't quite agree with or whatever.
Right.
But it is a very, very interesting story, and it's just wild.
Well, goodness gracious. Maureen, thank you for doing all of that research.
Oh my gosh, it was a blast. I loved doing it. I'm going to now sage our whole house.
Yeah, please. Yes, that's a great idea. Well, you know what? Let me smudge with my own sage here.
Oh.
Here's something to brighten your heart and your mind.
Okay.
Ladies and gentlemen, the names of our top tier Patreon subscribers.
Ooh.
Of course, the Dream James Watkins, the Finnish Face Via Lundqvist, the Madman Marcus Hall, the Vivacious Vicky McHugh, the Tenacious Teresa Hackworth, the Heartbreak Kid Chris Hackworth, the Oh So Suave Sean Richardson, the British Bone Breaker Bex Martin, the Notorious Nicholas Barker, the Terrifying Taylor Lashmet, the Count of Cool Cameron Corliss, the Archduke of Attitude Adam Archer, the Sinister Sam Kiker, the Nightmare of New Zealand Noeline Vivilli, the Loathsome Johnny Love, the Carnivorous Kevin Bogey, and the Killer Stud, Carl Stein.
Wow. Thank you so much to all of our Patreon subscribers. We are so grateful for you, and thank you for doing what you do. And we're so grateful for all of our listeners, of course.
Yes, and citizens of the Milky Way, happy Halloween.
Yes, if you enjoyed this episode, please like, rate, subscribe, tell a friend, tell a cousin, tell a neighbor, tell a bus driver. I don't know, tell anyone you want, but just spread the good word. We really would appreciate it. And like Dylan said, happy Halloween. We hope you are having a fantastic weekend celebrating.
We got to celebrate our anniversary.
That's right. Dylan and I have our 1-year wedding anniversary this Halloween Sunday.
That's right.
Yes, we're very excited. So thank you for being with us for this our first wedding anniversary together.
Citizens of the Milky Way, my name is Dylan Hackworth.
I'm Maureen Bogey.
Good night and goodbye.
Bye.